Hey, everybody. Let's see. It is the end of July, and 6 months ago, at the end of January, I announced that I was leaving social media, Facebook and Meta, and I just thought it would be good to check in with folks and kind of report out from the other side here. If you all caught that video, one of the things I shared was having years of disillusionment and challenge using social media, and then kind of the straw that broke the camel's back was everything that was going on with Meta and other tech companies capitulating to Trump, and it just was a clear sign for me that it was time to finally take action. And also, I remember sharing that I was reading this book, How to Calm Your Mind by Chris Bailey, who's really like a productivity expert, distraction and get down to it guy. But he talked about dopamine. He talked about the calm that he found taking, a social media fast. And, so now I'm 6 months into my own experience, and for me, this isn't a fast. This is just life now. But I did want to share that I feel what Chris was talking about, that sense of calm when you're not using, social media or engaging on your phone as much. But one of the coolest things I found is time. I have so much more time than I've had for years, and nothing else has changed in my life except that I'm no longer looking at my phone and filling up any free moment that I have with looking at pictures and scrolling. And I'm not thinking about what I need to post, and that's really nice too. But really, it was that sort of mindless in-between time that made me feel like I was always on and always going. So I can say the feeling is fantastic. I've also been experimenting with muting notifications on certain things. Like I have a group chat with girlfriends that I love and cherish, and sometimes there can be like 75 chat messages coming through, and I feel like, oh, they came through, I have to look at them, I have to read them, I have to respond. And it's been really cool to mute those notifications, and so I only see if there's a discussion if I actually click on it, and I can choose to do that when it feels good for me, and take time to read back through the messages and reply, rather than that feeling of like, I got to check it and then I have to respond to it, and how that really just kind of comes in and hijacks your mind and your time. So I wanted to share that. And I also wanted to share I'm reading a new book, or I'm listening to a new book. I wasn't able to get it from the library in time to hold it up for you, but I'm got it from the library, an audio book, and it's by Emily Cherkin. She was a former middle school teacher. She's a parent of two, and she's a Screentime consultant. She has a book called The Screentime Solution, and it's geared for parents. And I know many of you either have much younger children or grown children. I'm right in the middle. I have a tween. She's going to be going into 6th grade. So, social media and devices are something that we're thinking about and talking about a lot. So reading this book or listening to this book, The Screentime Solution, and one of the things that I was surprised by right away was that it is for parents about, our kids and technology, but it's really about what we're doing as parents ourselves. She has this quote from Brene Brown about the quote is, the question isn't so much whether you're parenting the right way, but are you the adult you want your child to grow up to be? So, the author really puts modeling device use and technology on the parents' shoulders, as it rightfully should be, and, talks about being tech intentional. Like, obviously, I'm recording a video, I'm listening to this book on audiobook, I'm sending this out by an email, and, meeting with you all on Zoom, and how amazing is that? Technology is wonderful in many ways and here to stay. But how can we be tech intentional, and particularly around when it comes to social media, which we know is harmful to children and very impactful for adults. If you don't want to go as far to say harmful, we'll say very impactful. One of the things that Emily Cherkin says in this book that also really stuck out to me was her separation of what's scary and what's dangerous. So, she gives an example of, scary is like sharks and riptides, but what's actually dangerous are bathtubs. And she talks about, scary is, your child goes on a ski trip with their friends, and she tells a story of a girl, got separated from her friend group, and she didn't have a phone and she couldn't call her parents, and she was really scared. That is scary for a parent, but she says what's actually dangerous is to have a child that doesn't know how to problem solve or, find an adult or ask for help. Scary, dangerous. And, I have to admit, leaving social media, one of the scariest things for me as a business owner was, I'm going to lose the opportunity to connect with potential clients. That was scary. And also missing out, seeing my friends and family and all of you and your pictures and announcements of what's going on in your lives. But what I realized, reading this book was like, okay, that is scary. What's actually dangerous for me, as separate from the modeling I do as a parent, but for me, what's dangerous is this idea that, there's always more to do. I always need to be filling my time. I always need to be seeking and being active and being engaged, and it's somewhere out there. That's a dangerous thing for me. It's been so powerful to kind of realize how much social media was sort of outsourcing my sense of connection and my sense of, networking and, what the old ways that people used to build businesses and be successful. I would also say that, just straight old fashioned dopamine is such a factor here too. So much of it is just what's happening in our brain when we use our devices, when we use technology. And, we think about dopamine as pleasure, and that's part of it, but really it's about seeking and it's about more. And so in a way, our brains get hijacked because technology is designed and social media is designed for them to be, seeking more and more and more of this pleasurable stimulation, and like I think about Buddhism's hungry ghost has an insatiable appetite, has a little mouth and a huge belly. So to unhook from all of that, or I should say a lot of that, I still have a phone and I still sometimes find myself, more on messages, but still find myself noticing the impact of technology, but so much less now that I'm not on social media. And the other thing I just would share from the book for all of you that, she talks about as a parent, but really I think this is for us as people. She says, her TLDR, her too long didn't read version, is about technology. Later is better, less is more, and relationships and skills over screens. So, later is better for kids, obviously delaying giving them smartphones and access to social media. But I think for us, thinking later is better in the sense of we have this impulse, check, scroll, whatever. Just like me with my notifications muted. Later is better. It's not the always reacting, always seeking, always more. Later is better. So delaying, muting, kind of reverse engineering some of this dopamine stuff. Less is more, obviously, for kids, how much screen time they're having, and the number of hours that teenagers are using their screens separate from the hours that they're using them for education is mind-boggling. So less is more. And for us too, talks about in the book how many parents are having family movie night and they're watching the TV at the same time that they have their phone and they're looking at their phone. Less is more. If you can find ways to reduce your device and technology use, it's more. Less is more. And then I love how she says relationship and skills over screens. So obviously, like that example of the girl, getting separated from her friends, building those skills of, okay, how do we problem solve? What do we do when we get lost? How can we ask for help? I remember like traveling with our daughter and being like, okay, what happens if we somehow get separated on the subway? What will you do? And who will you talk to? So providing kids with skills. But I think, especially for us, like recognizing we still have skills to build around technology. And in terms of relationships, that like when you see people all the time, like out to dinner and they're all on their phones instead of talking to each other, like, or, you're in the middle of a conversation and your phone pings and you immediately look at it, like, what is that doing to our relationships? So less is more, later is better, relationships and skills over screens. That's my report from this side of from being off social media. If anybody's curious and wants to talk about it, I'd love to know what you're struggling with, and I'd love to see some more people experimenting with this, and maybe we can be some of the early fish that sort of lead the pack away from where we're currently headed, which to me is clearly dangerous. All right, that's the news for me today. Be in touch. Let me know what's going on for you. Bye.